Goeiedag, mijn naam is Evan, ik ben immigratieprocureur here in America, and ik wil je help om immigratiewet te verstaan. Now, we have a bunch to go over today, but first, I want to apologize because there's people actually working in my house today redoing part of my kitchen. So if it sounds like a construction zone in downtown Manhattan in the middle of New York City, I apologize, but this will be going on for the next couple of weeks, so I'm trying to make videos around it, but if I can't, I will have to make videos with the construction sounds in the background. Second, please remember to like, subscribe, share the videos. Consider becoming a channel member if you haven't already. It really helps the work that I'm doing here to try and help Afrikaners navigate the refugee program, Afrikaners here in the States navigate the asylum process, and to make Americans aware of the persecution of Afrikaners inside Africa. So I appreciate that. The third thing is I did reach out to Amerikaners and I received a response. Now, I want to be clear. I think this group is great. They were awesome in responding to me. They were very professional. I appreciate it. And they said that they've actually reached out to PRM to come up to find an answer to my question, which is whether or not Afrikaners and other people who meet all the requirements of the program but are outside South Africa can actually apply for the refugee program. And they promised to get back with me as soon as they get a response. Now, for those of you who don't know, today, Monday is a federal holiday. It's Columbus Day. So we don't expect any answer back today, but probably by tomorrow or Wednesday. And as soon as I get that, I will post a response here. I did want to say, though, someone sent me an email because apparently the Amerikaners group actually commented on the video that I made, and then that comment was removed. Now, I didn't remove it, so all I can assume is that they removed it because I had seen that some of the responses to it. And they probably removed it because some of the responses to the comment weren't very nice, is only a good way to say it, or very confrontational. Remember, please, that this channel is meant to help all Afrikaners, whether they want to stay inside Africa, whether they want to come to the United States, whether they want to be a refugee, whether they're here and trying to be an asylee, whether it's family members trying to get information. Everyone who comes to this channel needs to be treated with respect, except for one group of people, which we'll talk about in a second. But everyone that comes to this channel needs to be treated with respect. And please be respectful of each other unless, and here's the group that doesn't, it's racial bigoted nonsense. And you get that a lot of with the EFF supporters who comment on my videos against Mulem and things like that. Those videos, feel free, guns, safety's off, go full speed, do whatever you got to do. But with other Afrikaners and other refugees and even Americans who come here to comment, when people ask questions or people disagree with you, be civil in your responses to them, because I've tried to do that with all of you, even when the same questions are asked repeatedly, which brings me to the point of today's video. So please take that for what it is, because I love the Amerikaners group, and I don't want them to feel that if they post here that people will attack them because of, a personal issue with how the program is working. Y'all came to me, asked about this question about Afrikaners who aren't inside Africa. I reached out to them. They were great and respectful and polite in responding to me, and we're going to get an answer. We're going to give it to you here on this channel. So just be patient, and please remember to be respectful. Unless people are posting these hateful, bigoted comments, then by all means, guns blazing, let's go after them, because it's time that people stood up for Afrikaners and other ethnic minorities inside Africa that are being persecuted. And that's my goal here in the United States, is to make that persecution well known to all Americans here, and what the United States needs to step up and do for Afrikaners, in the same vein that we've stepped up and helped Israel and all of our other allies out there in the world, and even help people from all nations across the planet come here as asylees, come here as refugees, all of that. It's not a race thing at all. It is a stop persecution thing, but again, the EFF and their ilk will never understand that. So my point today, 4 minutes and I apologize, is I'm getting this question a lot. I'm getting a question from people here in the United States, Afrikaners here, who are on H visas, agricultural visas, the H-1A visas, and who have family inside Africa. And they're saying their visas are coming to an end. Do they go back? Do they go back and try and attempt the refugee program? Now, I want to be clear about this. I've said this multiple times, and I don't have an answer for you because I haven't heard of anyone who's done this, been successful, and then reported back to me. So I'm just going off of what I've talked to other immigration attorneys about, what the letter of the law says concerning term persecution, and common sense. My answer to all of you is, and has been many, I made this video a bunch, but again, new viewers and all people like that, you cannot go back to South Africa. persecution is the standard for a refugee program and for asylum, right? Now, we've talked at length about this. Persecution has been defined by the United States government, by our courts, by our immigration system, as more than mere discrimination or harassment. It rises to extreme levels of conduct, such as threats to life and liberty. So you can be killed or you can be imprisoned indefinitely. That's really the bar for what persecution is. Now remember, this persecution has to be inflicted by the government or someone the government is unable or unwilling to control, and they have to be doing it because of an immutable characteristic that you possess. Something you shouldn't have to change or something you can't change, in this case, your race. So let's just assume, for example, that you're here on an H visa, your family's in South Africa, and you go back. You will then have to have an interview with a USCIS refugee officer. USCIS, the same group that does asylum here. A refugee officer receives the same training as an asylum officer concerning what defines persecution and the three elements, the three requirements for you to be able to merit a refugee program. And remember, if you go to the U.S. Embassy's website in South Africa, you can see people can be denied. USCIS can deny based on your claim of the well-founded fear of future persecution. So let's just be clear on that, okay? Now, I haven't heard it happening, but it clearly can happen, okay? So they know the three elements. It's got to be the government or someone the government can't control or won't control. It's got to be persecution more than mere discrimination, harassment, threats to life and liberty, and it has to be because of your race. Okay? If you go back to South Africa and you claim the government is persecuting me, like Malema and the EFF, right? And I've seen this happen with people who've tried asylum, so to make an analogy, from other countries who have done the same thing. If you fly back into South Africa, the government knows you're there, right? Your passport is scanned. They know you're there. You have to go through customs. You have to go through a government-run organization to get out of the airport. So if the government is your persecutor, how'd you get out of the airport safely? Right? That's one of the first steps. The second thing is, so the government knows you're there. If it's someone the government can't control, then you can't necessarily use Malema because he is the government. The EFF is part of the government. So you have to figure out some way to tap dance around that explanation of, if your persecutor is the government, well, the government knows you're back. Why didn't they just arrest you? Why didn't they just take you into custody? Why didn't they just kill you there? Right? And I'm using analogies that I've seen with people from other countries who've been like political dissidents. I fled wherever because of my politics. Okay, well, you left the country, right? You went through the main airport of your nation. The government knew you were leaving. Why didn't they just arrest you there? So again, it undermined part of their claim. Now, persecution, threats to life and liberty. Why would you go back to a country where you fear that your life is going to be taken from you? It undermines your claim to ever go back to the country where you're claiming that you fear persecution. And I know this sucks because you all have family there. And a lot of y'all's visas and things are expiring here in the United States. But if you go back for asylum claims, and I know it's different, but it's the same terminology, it's the same standards. In an asylum claim, if you ever go back to that country, and from the moment you file asylum, if you go back, goodbye, kiss it goodbye. Because the government will say you don't have a well-founded fear of future persecution if you went back to the country where you feared threats to life and liberty. So you're going to have to go back and explain to a USCIS refugee officer why you returned and why you still have that fear. Because if you're here in the United States, you have an option available to you. It's asylum. It's not a great option because it's almost impossible to get a grant, but the government doesn't care about that. The government cares that the option was available to you. You just chose not to take it, and you went back to South Africa where you claim that you fear persecution. Right? So that's the important thing. There's really those two elements. If you go back and you're saying the government's persecuting me, well, if you go back, the government's going to know you're there. So you fear the government, but you went back knowing they're going to know you're getting off that plane, scanning your passport. And the second thing is the idea of persecution. You can suffer through discrimination, but persecution is unsufferable because it threats to life and liberty. It's that extreme form of conduct. So if you go back, you're going to have to explain that to this refugee officer. And I don't think you can have a well-founded fear of future persecution if you ever return to South Africa. So for these H workers here, these H visa workers here, An option is to file for asylum, which will give you status that you can remain. But remember, once you cannot work for 6 months once you file an asylum claim. You can work till the expiration of your H visa, but if your H visa, let's say you file today and your H visa has 2 more months on it, you can work for those 2 more months, but then you would not be able to work for the 4 more after that till you get your work permit. After that, you do have legal right to be here while your asylum application is processing, and your family in South Africa can go through the refugee program. They can come over here as refugees, and then at some point, because you're legally still here and you didn't have to go back, you can file to adjust status through your refugee family, right? That's an option. It's not a great option because these things still take time, and you do have to file your asylum claim, and your asylum claims are incredibly difficult to get, but if it failed, you could then fall onto the adjusting your status through your refugee relatives. But again, all of these things, they're not ideal, but none of these programs are meant to be ideal. They were meant to save people from persecution. So again, I'm kind of ranting and raving a little bit, but at 11 minutes in, my point was to say that any of you who have the thought or the question of, do I go back? And again, we had one client who filed for asylum. He also put in for the refugee program. He got a call for an interview for the refugee program, and he decided to drop his asylum claim and go back to South Africa. And he, our honest legal opinion, again, this is not legal advice, this is for educational purposes only on YouTube, I'm just giving you some background, some anecdotal background. I asked many immigration attorneys from many different places and law professors. It didn't make sense to us. It didn't make sense that you could go back and then claim the well-founded fear of future persecution. So just be aware of that at least the consensus here, without any other proof, without anyone coming to me and saying, this happened and it worked, which I'm waiting for. If this happened to you and it worked, please tell me so I can educate our viewers here about what's going on. But I haven't heard anything yet. And for the most part, because it is analogous to asylum with the same laws, the same rules, same requirements, our gut thought is if you go back, you will undermine your well-founded fear of future persecution claim for the refugee program. So keep that in mind, okay? But as always, remember, like, subscribe, share, remain safe. Keep watching these videos. Keep posting your comments. Remember, this is a safe space for everyone except for racist, bigoted jerks. So if someone comments something, please be respectful and respond to them, especially if it's groups like Amerikaners and other groups that, are trying to help and we're trying to get information from. So until next time.